7:02. Ms. Dawson, please move the flag salute.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Folks, will you call the roll, please?
Trustee Berdal, Trustee Brocchini, Trustee Doggett, Trustee Levin,
Present.
Trustee Villalobos. Here. Thank you.
The district digitally records the audio portion of the meetings. The recorder is located in front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As community service, Pacifica Community Television records and broadcasts meetings. Report out on closed session topics. The board met in closed session regarding the comprehensive school safety plans and security of school facilities and the public employee performance evaluation of the superintendent. No action was taken. Item 7, approval of minutes. Are there any questions regarding the minutes of the meeting for January 22nd, 2020? None. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 22nd, 2020? All in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Approval of the minutes of January 29th, 2020. Are there any questions regarding the minutes of minutes of the meeting of January 29th, 2020? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting on January 29th, 2020? All those in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Item 9, approval of the agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions regarding the items listed on the agenda?
I do. We received late this afternoon a overnight field trip request, and we don't have plans to meet before the field trip, so I would respectfully request that the board members consider putting this in the agenda. So I would request that we add the overnight field trip, the overnight Valamar field trip into the agenda, please.
All those in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
I'd also like to remove board policy number 5145 and put that on to the next regular meetings. So I'll have a chance to.
5145.11.
Yes, I have a correction on the personnel changes document, number 2A, transfer of Eva Cosgrove from Ocean Shore School it should say LMEC, not Ortega. Excuse me.
Yeah, okay, as long as you do that correct.
Just a correction.
Yeah, I think I think it's fine. Thank you. Are there any other questions regarding the agenda or consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? All those in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Communications. Speakers wishing to address the board on items on the agenda or not on the agenda may complete speaker cards and submit them to any member at the staff table. If you are addressing the board on a non-agenda item, please be aware that the provisions of the Brown Act prohibit the board from acting or discussing such matters at this meeting. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person per topic. LSEA.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Harris. I'm the co-chair of the LSEA bargaining team. LSEA has always made students their top priority. We work overtime to cover the needs of students, many who still 7 months after school has started are still not receiving RSP services. We're working overtime to meet the needs of English learners who still receive no support from our district. And we're working overtime because we're public school teachers who care deeply for students. We are here to ask that the board change its priorities, which have clearly shifted away from students and the people who work directly with them. This is evidenced by their allocation of resources and in their actions. The Pacifica School District spends a good deal more than similar districts in the state on administrators, and it pays its administrators a considerable amount more than other similar districts. We simply cannot afford this, especially as we are in the middle of a teacher shortage and our teachers have the lowest salaries in the county. Our brothers and sisters in CSEA, who are also working tirelessly for our students, are also among the lowest paid in our area. Yet the district does not make attracting and retaining teachers their priority, as the LCAP requires. Instead, it attracts and supports administrators. They hired a lead psychologist, a lead behaviorist to assist the head of special ed. They hastily hired a new administrator to support their administrators in HR. They created 6 teachers on special assignment positions to support administrators with administrative tasks. And these positions are slyly put on the books as teaching jobs so as to make the public think they're paying for teachers, not administrators. But the district's actions are also show a clear priority in making district administrators more comfortable. When we were short many teachers at the beginning of the school year, including 3 resource teachers who work with students with the greatest needs, the district decided to leave hundreds of students without teachers and without support. District administration left Pacifica's teachers scrambling to work harder and longer to support those kids. Yet the superintendent could have easily solved this problem by simply having our teachers on special assignment take these positions until they could be permanently filled. But as she refused to give up the support for district administrators, she did so at the problem of kids, and she refused to help those kids. To this day, there are resource students without support in our district. This is a shameful display of our district's current priorities. The district is still not looking for real solutions to the teacher crisis. They offered LSEA a concession while selling this drastic cut to teacher compensation to the public as a means to create equity. This offer would take away all family and +1 health benefits, supposedly to fund a raise in our salaries, essentially making teachers pay for their own raise, while offering no new money to LSEA members. It did not even promise any certain percentage of a raise in salary. 2/3 of our membership would lose between 10 and 35% of their total pay. And personally, it would cost me and my family over $15,000. Yet this was being sold to the public as a great deal for teachers for the purpose of equity. Well, I have a better idea of how the PSD can reach equity. Take away administrator benefits and cut their salaries to the equivalent level of Pacifica teachers in this county. Get rid of your administrative supports, which are taking money from students and from classrooms. Cutting your new admin position and your teachers on special assignment positions alone would provide enough money for perhaps a 7 to 8% raise for teachers. You're never going to attract and retain teachers with disrespect and deception. Our students will not be supported if you cannot attract and keep the people who directly work with them. Please make some drastic changes to your priorities and please put kids first. Thank you.
CSEA
I'd really like to thank LSEA for many of our thoughts that we had at tonight's meeting for our CSEA membership. And then I look at the agenda, future agenda, and it scares me no end. Again, one of the proposals to help cut $850,000 is to cut classified employees. Lay them off, get rid of them. We are all working so hard right now in our classrooms to meet the needs of our students, to keep the buildings clean. And boy, every time there's a layoff, you can bet it's the classified employees. I think it's time that our district people who are responsible start looking at how we can get some additional funding. And I wouldn't recommend a parcel. I think our community is pretty tired of those. But we need to start thinking of the students, not just the almighty dollar that goes into it. The students are the ones that suffer when you cut classified employees. The teachers are the ones who suffer. You're taking away what we can offer our students. Please look elsewhere besides classified employees.
Thank you. We next have people that want to address the board, and the first one up is Rachel, is it Merlo? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rachel Merlot. I teach at Ingerby Lacey. I'm here tonight to once again address the board regarding retaining teachers. Recently, the district proposed a concession to reconfigure the health benefits to potentially add more money to the salary schedule. This idea actually does not increase overall compensation. For over 60% of our membership will drastically increase their out-of-pocket costs, thus negating the so-called raise. The district also offered a one-time off-the-scale 1% payout to teachers. For a middle-of-the-road teacher like myself, after taxes and deductions, this equals close to the amount of my PTO stipend that I get for the year to supply for my supplies in my classroom. I find this insulting. Time and time again, we are told that school sites need to add new curriculum, do more, and there continues to not be any monetary support to do this at school sites. It reminds me of the federal government and their education declarations with little to no support for schools. The PTOs continue to add more and more financial support to the district, which also are many of the teachers in this room. I once again will ask, how is this district looking at effective ways to financially support retaining their staff and directly impact their students? The district cannot function without their teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Charlotte Allen.
Hello, thank you. As a parent volunteer and advocate for quality education and a safe learning environment for the children of our district, I often think back to my own education and the lasting impressions that allow me to recall fond memories and continue to seek advanced education. I use those positive experiences as I make decisions regarding parenting and certainly when deciding where fundraising money serves students best. Activities like art instruction with Mrs. Wright, physical education every day with Mr. Rudy Benton. When I finally understood multiplication, all because Mrs. Glover and Ms. Tompkins took extra time to help me make flashcards during recess. Or the science experiments using cornstarch and food coloring with Mr. Snively, who wasn't ever afraid to get his hands dirty. To this day, each time I get an article published, I reach out to Mr. Burke and Ms. Cachot to thank them for believing in me and pushing me to excel in writing. I often utilize my former middle school principal's non-conventional methods to talk with my own kids about the hard stuff, like drugs and school violence. I wept the day I found out he passed away. I was in my 20s. Because these people, these heroes, made a difference, made a lasting impression, made me better, continue to make me better. Their life lessons live on as we all grow up, parent, and teach. Now I'm going to say something that might appear harsh, and it is not meant to be cruel or snarky, and it is certainly not meant to take away from anyone's hard work or achievements. But with all the memories I recall, going back to kindergarten with Mrs. Spivey, I cannot recall one district office administrator's name. That does not mean that they weren't movers and shakers working tirelessly behind the scenes. I just wonder, with teachers making such a huge impact to our children's education and futures, has the board ever considered cutting back on administrative spending or eliminating one or two administrative positions so that we can stop undercutting our teachers? In 2017, a middle-range custodian within our district was making $74,513 a year, while a seasoned middle school teacher was making $74,460. At that same time, the district chief business officer was earning $180,204 a year. Neither the custodian nor the chief business officer had any classroom time with our students that I'm aware of. Neither individual is a name our students know, and neither individual was charged with the day-to-day tasks of instructing, mentoring, and being held accountable for the education of 64+ children in that year. Yet both made more money. A year prior, a K-1 combination teacher, one that is responsible for teaching 2 grade levels different curriculum at the same time, was making $51,541 per year. Not long ago, the people in this room, in this city, this small community, passed a 10-year bond that was meant to go toward retaining and attracting qualified teachers. I don't know about you, but there is nothing attractive about a $51,000 income. Not here, not at this time.
Thank you. Next up is Avery Allen.
Hi, I'm Avery. I'm an 8th grade student here at Gallimore. I'm Charlotte's daughter. I want memories like my mom's, and I want to be smart like Mrs. Murphy, strong like Mrs. Saxon, voice like Miss Cloud. I want our teachers to know they are appreciated by me and by my peers and by our school district. My teachers have taught me to be a problem solver, think outside the box, and approach problems from different angles. I urge the board to do the same. Perhaps we can follow the footsteps of some of our neighboring districts, like the Palo Alto School District, who reached a tough decision, but one that saved them $100,000 per year. After looking to the district levels to make cuts, they chose to eliminate an assistant superintendent position. And just a thought, I realize it may not be considered popular, but what about cutting part-time vice principals? Our schools did well without them for a long time. Has the board considered going back to a more bare-bones school site approach to administration? According to Educational Leadership Volume 60, research shows that effective teachers are the most important factor contributing to student achievement. Although curricula, reduced class size, district funding, family and community involvement all contribute to school improvement and student achievement, the most influential factor is the teacher. Choosing effective teachers is critically important for schools trying to improve their performance. This means we have to offer fair salaries and enticing health packages to our school-facing teachers, to our student-facing teachers. If our teachers can't stick around, we have very little to stick around. I support our teachers just as they've always supported me, while making very little to do so. Let's explore options and keep our Pacifica teachers in Pacifica. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Dave McCarroll.
I was really dreading having to go after her. That was beautiful. I'm a parent of a 5th grade Ortega student and a son, 8th grader at Ocean Shore. And excuse me if I fumble through this. This doesn't come really easy to me. And it's going to be about, I may ramble, but I timed it, it's about 3 minutes. So. I see a sea of red in the room tonight. When I see red, emotionally speaking, I think of anger. That's an ironic word, anger. For what fills this room should be one of bliss. And when I say bliss, I'm not talking the fairy tale variety, but in a professional sense. Teaching is truly one of those occupations where the teachers have followed their childhood dreams and have actually become one. I don't have to remind the teachers in the building tonight of the joy and ecstasy of the news of their first teaching job. Bliss, not anger. Though we all know the job isn't all rainbows and unicorns, these teachers pour their hearts into their profession, knowing full well that they're making a difference in all of our children's lives. A difference everyone in this room knows is not adequately compensated. A level of compensation they took on, irregardless, to do a job that would make them happy, blissful. A job that requires long hours at the school and even more time at their homes. Excuse me. I attended an Ocean Shore meeting Monday night. My son's 8th grade teachers in attendance. Jason and Sophie, there's one of them there, I forgot. It did not end till almost 8:30. That is a 12 to 13 hour day for those teachers with no overtime. I'll say that again, no overtime compensation. What person in this room does that? I know I don't, per my union rules. I know in the white-collar world, if you're putting in those kind of hours, there's a fat payday or bonus at the end. But not teachers. They just trudge along for the sake of our kids, my kids. Bliss, in spite of the conditions at times. To not offer these teachers just compensation at the bargaining table incite feelings quite the opposite of bliss. Anger. Red shirts, I'm almost there. I'll read you a list of words synonymous with anger. Annoyed, offended, sullen, uptight, exacerbated, indignant, resentful, bitter, irate, furious, outraged. I'm sure these are things teachers are feeling about what the district is offering on this contract. We need these teachers focused on their next day lesson plans, not harboring negative thoughts or wondering how much longer they can afford to work in this district. I'm sure all of you as a board knows this, but adequate compensation leads to more, you got it, bliss. The last thing I should be doing as a parent is advocating on my children's teachers' behalf, yet here I am. Do what you know is a moral imperative and give these teachers a contract they can be proud of. We don't need to be the district that pays the highest. We just want our teachers happy, not angry. The only time these teachers should be wearing red in unity should be for the 49ers only. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Elizabeth Russell, you're next.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Russell. I guess you guys got a reprieve from me last month because I thought we were okay. I thought we had teachers hired, but we don't. In our school, we lost again another RSP teacher. And so I stand here tonight because now we're at the other level. Now I stand here tonight with a letter from the Board of Education that you are out of compliance and that there are things that need to be completed by the end of February, which includes providing funds not at the rate that they gave us in this compensatory letter, but the rate of the provider that we find. I'm sure you received the letter, and if you haven't, I'd be more than happy to send it to you. And this is only the first letter. There are other parents that are submitting letters. So I don't know what else you need to get the idea that this is not acceptable for our children, okay? It is wrong. And these people over here, although I get another, there must have been a misunderstanding. Let's talk, and I keep saying, put it in an email. Send me what I'm misunderstanding. But then I get a call, or let's go have coffee with Maria. Again, when this woman over here can't even look at me when I'm speaking. This is last time I was up here, and it is the same thing tonight. She will not look and give me the respect that I deserve.
Can we not
as
make
a
it
parent.
personal,
Okay?
please?
It is personal,
Yeah,
okay? But she doesn't. She doesn't look at us.
That's not helpful for you, so.
It's the truth. Look at her.
Let's just talk
Look at
this
her.
down.
You guys all respect me by looking at me. All I'm asking is that. That's it. That's. I would do the same for you. Okay?
Continue on then?
Yeah. So this is it. This is the letter that you are out of compliance. This is the date that you need to be in compliance, and to get us a letter in regards to the monies that we need to get the services, or another representative. There are options, you guys. You just need to go there. And that's all I have to say tonight, is now we're at the next phase, and the next phase, and then you know what the next phase is.
They have to provide the services. They don't have, it's not the money. You guys actually have to provide the services.
Do you want to fill out a slip and come up and talk? Okay, thank you.
But if you
heard
want,
it, though.
This is your time.
yeah, this is the letter. This is where we're at, and I'm just begging that you guys listen to this. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Gwendolyn Holden.
Hi. Tonight's my yoga night, so excuse my appearance. I'm not in my pajamas, so that's the best I can do. I just want to make sure that you're perfectly aware of how not having the RSP teachers affect all of us. I think a lot of people have spoken about that, and I think you're fully aware. And I just want to make sure that you've got a plan for next year. I mean, I can, at this point, I'm willing to let this year go, because me personally, I have to. But I'm not seeing the vision for next year, and that highly, highly concerns me. What I did is I looked on EdJoin to see what's posted by the district. There was the job information, or the job that was posted for the RSP teacher for next year was posted on Monday, February 10th. And when you look at the certificate, the salary, it says certificate salary scale 2014-2015. And I don't know what that's about. I don't know if that's an administrative error. I don't know if that's a contract issue, but I can tell you that's absolutely alarming. I only made one copy, but I'm going to hand it over to you guys so you can, I printed out the posting. So somebody's going to have to get it together somewhere, and I don't know who or what or where, but it's got to be better than this.
Next up is Jennifer Mitchell.
Don't start my time yet.
Not starting it until you start talking.
Right. Gwendolyn, I know why that salary scale is there, because our salary hasn't changed. I'm Jennifer Mitchell, kindergarten teacher at Ocean Shore, and I am so weary of coming here and talking to the board about this. Okay, but I realize that as a good teacher, I should provide you with some visuals rather than just talking to you. So, here are the salary differences. You can see very clearly that Pacifica School District falls significantly behind comparable districts when it comes to teacher salaries. See all those negatives? But the administrative salaries are way ahead of all the positives. The administration will tell you that students are their first priority, but their actions speak louder than words. For example, there are currently 6 teachers on special assignment, but let's be clear, these are administrative positions. In fact, the teacher crisis, both the special education and general education crisis, could have been offset by placing these credentialed teachers in classrooms where there were no actual teachers. The district instead chose to keep those positions as administrative support for themselves, while hundreds of students had no services and their classroom teachers had no support. Here is my admittedly poorly drawn picture of what this looks like. This is me, 24, sometimes +1. Here are the teachers on special assignment with adults. Even more frustrating is that some of these positions are paid for by funding which is supposed to go directly towards supporting some of our most at-risk students, our English language learners. None of these positions work directly serving English language learner students. I've been in this district for 23 years and I've seen administrations come and go. We used to be a district where we had little, but we were all in it together. We felt valued, we felt respected. The past 8 years or so have been exactly the opposite. Our students need more, our workloads have increased exponentially, the expectation that we work dozens upon dozens of hours out of contract has increased, and most importantly, the support for our students has declined. Feels like neither the school board nor the administration cares about the working conditions in our classrooms, and the teachers are constantly in a battle with administrators over salaries and working conditions. As a result, I'm doing something I haven't done in 23 years. I'm getting my resume together, and I'm thinking about leaving the Pacifica School District. It may not mean much to you. You might be happy to get rid of this loud-mouthed kindergarten teacher, but it breaks my heart. I'm an excellent, dedicated, hardworking professional. I moved my family here for this school district, and to be treated with such disrespect is beyond infuriating. It's devastating.
Thank you. Next up is Michelle Gray.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear? My name is Michelle Gray. I'm a parent, and I've had the wonderful experience of having someone at Sunset Ridge, and now at Valimar, 2 students at Valimar. I'm also on the PTO and have been for 4 years, and I'm heartbroken. I'm absolutely heartbroken, and I'm directing my comments here. So we moved to Pacifica for a reason, so that we could put our kids in public school. We felt that was really important, and I'm happy to contribute. I contribute my time, my enthusiasm, my effort, as much finances as we can. The pressure that is put on the PTOs to help provide some of the basics at these schools now is unbelievable. And you guys have a responsibility to figure this out, right? This is a fractured process and system, and I'm very concerned about the trajectory it's taking. I'd love to hear how you guys can somehow tie your salary and support, so it's commensurate with that of the LSEA and CSEA, so that if they're getting in the 15th percentile for salary and benefits, then you guys all do too. I think that's just fair. And it's a nice motivator to make sure everyone is going to receive the benefit. So I'm challenging you guys to live up to the responsibility you have and to figure this out, because it can't get any worse. At least I hope.
Thank you for that. The last speaker we have is Janelle Jones.
I am. Sure. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Sorry.
All right, item 10D, we have correspondence. Or do we have correspondence?
I do not.
No correspondence. Item 10E, Board Superintendent Communications. You know, there's going to be a presentation on the district's budget, which might be really interesting for everybody to stick around for. Big presentation on the district budget. Really interesting. Really, really important. Okay, please proceed.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay, I just want to read one of the correspondence I received. And I will not use the name. Okay, I received a correspondence from a parent, community member, very involved. There are still 4 unfilled special ed positions in the district. 1-on-1 at Ortega, paraprofessional at Ortega, 1-on-1 at Sunset Ridge, and paraprofessional at IDL. This parent has been doing the IDL position 3 days a week as a sub since right before Thanksgiving. And so we're just concerned that we are not focusing on these positions as well. And these are 4 classified vacancies where our special ed kids are not getting the services that are needed, especially those who require a 1-on-1. Thanks for listening. That was my first correspondence. I also attended the Sunset Ridge General PTO meeting, and it was very well attended. I would say there was about 75 to 100 families, and Superintendent Olson presented the district budget 101, very informative. And then there was a presentation by the first grade class, and my favorite part of that was Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in American Sign Language. I also attended a PTO meeting. It was the Pto of Presidents Meeting. And the reason I've been attending these is because you can get a feeling for what's going on at each site when you go to these. So some of the things that were discussed from some of the leaders was, how is the progress coming along with the projects for the bond money? The other one was a brief overview of the district budget again, and the need to keep a 3% reserve, and fundraisers and activities. After listening, maybe we can offer a snapshot of the district at the beginning of each meeting. So that would be the budget. Not a presentation, but an update. And that's all I have.
Ms. Otter? Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be here, first of all, so thank you. I've actually been quite busy for the last 2 weeks. Before I became a board member, I was part of the January Jazz, since Elizabeth's not here to talk about. That's a great event with all the middle schools and the high schools coming together for the jazz event at the News College. I also went to happened to be my son's 8th grade spaghetti feed here at Valamar, which is great. I've been on 3 kindergarten tours, Ortega, Cabrillo, and Valamar, and I'm hoping in next month I can get to the other side of town and also the DeMar Educational Center, so we'll talk about that. But it was nice to be back in the schools, which it's been a long time since I was actually in the other schools, so it's great. Also getting to know everybody again. I got to sit in at a 3D printing club event, or it was a 3D printing club at Valamar, so it's kind of neat. They're utilizing their 3D printer that they purchased through the PTO. And I also last night attended the All-City Concert, which was another bringing the middle school together with the high school over at Terranova High. So been busy, but I'm glad to get out and visit with everybody. So that's what I've been up to.
Thanks so much, and you are most welcome. Thank you for joining us. So I have 2 things. One was the family success night at IPL, and it was focused on math, and I think it was well attended, better attended than before.
Oh yeah.
So actually you were there with me. Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was really, really incredible, and I had Stan Martin as my teacher, which was great. Learned a lot. The other thing I did is I spent last Friday and Saturday in the San Mateo County School Boards Association has what they call the Equity Network, and it's a series of meetings that we spend our time at, and it's really trying to focus on trying to make more equitable situations, particularly for those marginalized student populations that most schools have. And it's not just from a resource point of view, it's also from a cultural point of view. So on Saturday, there was a big push for trying to get our, I don't want to call it emotional IQ, but getting our cultural proficiency up to standard and really understanding differences and differences in across student populations and how it translates into their educational needs. So that was really good. I think there's something I'm missing, but I'll just stop there so we can.
I'll fill in what you missed. So last week, Jefferson Union High School District held their groundbreaking ceremony for their 122 units of employee housing. And that was very fun to celebrate with them. And so we were excited about that. And then most of my time in the last week has been spent around and so we've been doing some reaching out. Yesterday we were with the Cabrillo staff from about 11 to 1. Today we were up at Sunset Ridge, and we are spending the lunch hour as teachers and staff cycle through, just explaining a little bit about what the LCAP is, talking about a little bit of data, and then asking what concerns you about this data and what are some suggestions and strategies. We had our first district leadership team meeting for LCAP today, and we are excited about the plans moving forward.
Thank you. And I forgot that I was there at the groundbreaking. So next we have presentations. And we have item 11A is understanding our district budget with Superintendent Heather Olson.
This is sometimes typically a presentation that might be given by the CBO, but I actually tested it back there. Can you see it, Charlotte, from there? No? That's great. That's great. Oh. Can you see it, Linda? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Oh, look, that perfect. There you go. So, like all of the information. So I went to PTO last night. On Thursday night, I'm going to the IBL PTO, and then Ocean Shore is also having their general PTO meeting right at IBL. So we'll do 2 of those in one night. Bill told me I have control over this now. So this is a Budget 101, and it's an introduction to district finances. And our objective is to increase community awareness and understanding of how California public school funding works, and increase staff and community understanding so that we can maximize resources. Like we heard from the speakers, our district does not have a lot of resources, and so we need to make sure that we use every dollar very wisely. So just like your budget at home, our little things didn't come up very well, but so just like your budget at home, you look at what you have in the bank, you look at what money you have coming in, your revenues, you have your expenditures, and that ends up with your ending fund balance. So you'll see this kind of as a recurring theme, but revenues and expenditures matter a lot in a district like Pacifica. And an important thing to know is that I happen to be sitting right next to the foremost expert of adequacy, school funding adequacy, Dr. Jessie Levin, who does a number of studies around differences in spending and adequate cost per pupil. And so in California, the study saw the average per pupil spending at being $12,204. Really, to be adequate and to meet the goals that are set forth in California would require $16,890. So a difference of approximately, I'm doing the math on that quickly, but about $4,600 difference per pupil. So if you took that $4,600 and multiplied that over 3,000 students, that would be a substantial amount more money. And you know that in general, we often talk about California being underfunded or being one of the lowest revenue in the country. So again, if we look at California I'm trying to do multiple things at one time. If we look at California as the actual at $12,200, if we looked at the adequate funding, the estimate of the adequate funding being at $16,890, that second bar, we're still behind Massachusetts, Vermont, New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York. So even if we were at the adequately funded level, we'd still be 28% below New York. This is a really important thing to take in mind, okay? We do not have enough money to do the work that's expected of us from the state. So I want to explain to you a little bit about how we get the money that we do, the revenues that we get. And so about 7 years ago, the state of California moved to local control funding formula. And that is a calculation that determines the base per student funding that a district will receive. In addition to that, we receive a small amount of supplemental funding. I'll talk about that in a minute. That's for English learners, students who live in poverty, foster youth, and homeless students. So the amount calculated is compared to the total property tax dollars received. So if the taxes are lower, the state fills up that amount. If the property tax exceeds that LCFF calculation, then the district retains those property taxes and does not receive additional funds from the state. So those districts are considered community funded, or what we used to call basic aid districts. Okay? So there are 2 ways to look at that. So on the left are the state funded or the LCFF funded districts, that's us. And we are funded based on average daily attendance. So every day that students attend school, we receive funding. The property tax changes increase or decrease the state aid, but not the total revenue that we get. So if your property tax goes up and we're still in this category, we receive the same amount of money. The ADA increases result in increased total revenues. And for total revenues, ADA matters, so the amount of time, the the property values increase, the schools receive more money. The average daily attendance or the enrollment does not result in revenue increases and therefore reduce per pupil revenues. And for total revenues, property taxes matter. The number of students in school does not matter. So the difference is LCFF districts, which is what we are, versus the community funding. So the governor has submitted a proposal, or a budget proposal, and that is just exactly that. It is a proposal. We are not guaranteed that money. There's a lot of negotiating that goes on with the legislator between now and then. In mid-May, we will get what's considered the May revise, the governor's May revise. It's a little bit more sure at that point through mid-May because it's made it through several processes. It is not confirmed until it is passed by the legislature in June. So there have been some circumstances where we thought we were going to get a little bit more one-time money in May, and it ended up being less than we expected in June. So by June, that budget should be squared away. So just as an example over here, so the proposed amount for 2020 is $8,697, and that's kindergarten through third grade. So it's a little bit bigger in K through 3 because there's a grade span adjustment for lower class size in kindergarten through third grade. So we receive supplemental funds for the students that I described, EL, socioeconomically disadvantaged, homeless, and foster youth. And for each of those students, there's a 20% supplemental grant for each one of those students. Not all 3,000 of our students, but just our students that are identified as unduplicated. On the far right-hand side, the additional, say, $4,349, those are for school districts where they have unduplicated student population of above 55%. So, for example, Jefferson Elementary School District would receive those funds. And so that's more funding that they receive per student than we do. Just again, is that we receive supplemental grant funding, but not concentration grant funding. So two challenges that we have in terms of our revenue is that we are a low revenue district surrounded by high revenue districts. When I show you the next graph, I think you're going to be quite surprised. The other piece that is a challenge is that our cost of living increase of 2.29% does not meet the actual increase in our expenses that we're going to have. So this is San Mateo County, and this is 17-18 revenue. So at the very top is Portola Valley, a small school district. Portola Valley and Woodside Elementary both receive over $25,000 per student. That's an enormous amount of money. If we had $15,000 more per student times 3,000 students, that would be a really significant revenue for us. We are down at the very second from the bottom. Pacifica Elementary is right there, just over $10,000 per student. Right above us is Millbrae Elementary. They have a very significant Ed Foundation. They raise about $2 million a year from their Ed Foundation. And Millbrae is just below us, and they are beginning to increase. I think their foundation raised $1 million last year. So again, here we are amongst our peers with we have very low revenue, and our peers that are right next to us have some local funding that we don't currently have. So when we talk about funding commitments, in 2020, the governor proposed a 2.29% COLA, or cost of living, and that would be about $231 per student. that the new revenues only cover 3/4 of the cost committed to servicing our salary schedule. So our employees receive what's called step and column increases. So as they go down in terms of years, or perhaps they move over in terms of units, that our new revenues only cover 3/4 of that cost. These commitments do not include any increases to health and welfare benefits, retiree benefits, or increases related to special education costs. As a placeholder, we're looking at revenue minus expenditures equals the ending fund balance. So a couple things that people don't know is that there was an increase in funding with LCFF. That funding brings us to the 2007 revenue levels. It's with in terms of spending ability. So inflation adjusted. So 2007. So that's the amount of money is relative to 2007. Yet employee expenses, our employees' rents, our employees' costs are clearly 2020. So that's the challenge, is while we do have more money, we don't have the money that we need to be able to do business in the Bay Area, and that's an incredible challenge. With that additional funding from the governor came the opportunity / requirement to increase our contribution to the pension. So CalSTRS is the teacher's pension, certificated pension, and the PERS rates are the classified pension. And if we look at this year in 1920, the STRS increase is almost 17%. So for what we pay the employee, we also pay 17% of their pension. And for the classified employee, that's 19.7%. So this was written by a colleague of Dr. Levin's named Jason Willis, and he refers to this as the silent recession. So we have more money. This is well known throughout the state of California. People are beginning to write about this and to talk about this. Is we don't have more money, and there are a lot of districts that are in the same boat that we are in terms of having to make cuts. So in terms of the silent recession, it's yes, we do have more money, but we also have more expenses that have been passed on to us. So those pensions have gone up quite a bit. We cover employee health benefit costs. All districts across the state have had rapidly escalating special ed costs. And then we have what I refer to as the Bay Area bonus, is that everything that we do, our rents, our mortgages, our gasoline, our food, is more expensive than in other parts of the state, and there are no regional adjustments in terms of compensation or revenue. So it's very expensive to be in the Bay Area. When we look at what our general fund expenditures are, 83% of those are in salary and benefits. So we have certificated salaries, classified salaries, and employee benefits. Pacifica spends a very small amount on books and supplies. Across the board, we spend much less than other districts. In services and other costs, so that would be custodians, landscaping, other kinds of things, that's 14%, and then all other things are just less than 1%. So for relative to other districts, we're on the very high end of having a percentage of our budget go to salaries and benefits. So those of us that watched the budget were really hoping to see a difference from the governor. So there was no increase in that LCFF target or that budget or that base level. We were hoping that with an increase in that all districts would rise, and that was not there. Last year were some payments to offset some of those pension costs that were helpful to districts. That wasn't in this next year's budget, nor were any one-time discretionary grants, which was in the budget from 2 years ago. One of the things that's important to Pacifica is our reserve, and we say this regularly, but our reserve is significantly lower than other districts. So reserve is the money that you keep aside for emergencies. You are legally required to keep 3%, and you have to be able to show that you have 3% reserve for the next 3 years. If you can't do that, then the county would take your budget and say you need to make budget reductions, or they would offer what's called a negative certification, where you need to go and make adjustments, or else your budget wouldn't be approved. So if you look at across elementary school districts across the state, the average reserve is 20%. Unified school districts is a little bit lower, 15-16%. The recommended reserve levels are about 17%, which would be 2 months worth of salary. So if we were not, had no revenue coming in, we would be able to pay 2 months worth of salary. For us, that's about $5 million. Right now, our current Pacifica School District reserve in the second interim will be about 4.7%. We'd like it to be about 6%. That's still significantly less than our peers, but it would give us a little bit more padding. Last year, in order to, in terms of county oversight, like I said, we have to submit both our first interim and our second interim budgets to the school district, or to the County Office of Education. And they will be asking about the status of budget reductions, because in order to have that 3% reserve 3 years out, we need to reduce our budget by $600,000 to get to 3%, but we're looking for between $600,000 and $850,000 to be able to make sure that we have the appropriate padding and be able to compensate employees. So it's important that people really understand what our budget is. Some of our biggest concerns from the budget perspective is our employee compensation is not competitive with surrounding districts. We know that. So our reserve levels are really at the minimum levels. Our special ed costs are outpacing any new revenue that we're getting in that area. Our STRS and PERS employee pensions costs continue to increase. And they don't talk about this a lot in the Bay Area, but throughout California and the educational world, they talk about it's not if the recession's coming, it's when is the recession coming. And we don't seem to ever take that seriously because unemployment is so low in the Bay Area, and companies continue to do well, but it is very likely that there will be a recession at some time. So those are our concerns. And so at this point, I open this up for any discussion or questions with the trustees, with the understanding that I can phone a friend from Josie Peterson or Dr. Levin if I need to.
I have to run.
Okay.
But I do have a question. Will you break out the salaries? Could you break out how much of those salaries are teachers and how much, what percentage is administration?
But off the top of my head, I cannot, but I'll get that information. Okay.
I also have a question. I think it would be helpful to just show what our reserve would be three years out with our projections. And I know it's a big report, but just maybe a snapshot of this is where we would be next year, second year, and the third year. And it coincides right now with the LCAP too. So I think it would just be helpful to see that.
So I have a question for clarification, and this is on the reserve slide that we've had, slide 19. And at the bottom you have it red, and it says for PSD, 2 months of payroll equals $5 million. And then it says, comma, the current PSD reserve is 4.7%. Does that mean that 4.7% equals that $5 million?
Yeah, it
That's
does
what I
not.
thought. So what does that 4.7% equal in terms of months of payroll that we can cover?
Less than 1 month.
Less than 1 month. Okay. So that tells me that we are really sort of cutting it razor. The only other thing that I wanted to say is the numbers that Superintendent Olson showed earlier on from the study that I directed, which showed that as a state we need to spend 38% more in order to provide an adequate education. That didn't count any of the increased sturge for first class. Those numbers are from 6.7. So it's even worse than that. Okay, so that's an underestimate. That was really before 1617. You look at the numbers. That's before the burden of the sturge and first really started weighing in on districts.
To just that same slide that Jesse's talking about, what is the actual on 2 months with the salary? We have got a round number of 5 million, but do we have an actual? Like the exact number for 2 months salary, what is that exact number? We have a round number of 5 million?
A round number?
So it's listed as 5 million. You rounded it to 5 million. 2 months of payroll coverage is about 5 million.
Yeah.
What's the specific number?
Oh, the actual number? Okay, I can get that for you, because that was a very round number.
And that actual number is the 3% we're talking about, or the 4.7% for 2 months? So if you're saying the 4.7% is actually only 1.5 months for the salary?
Less than a month. Less than a month.
Less, okay. So that's really still not adequate then.
Right.
Okay, so just making sure that I have the reserve 3 years out. So from the interim budget, is that so Josie, I think that at the next board meeting is the second interim, right? And we always do that, and we can do that as a snapshot. So 3 years out. And then there was one more thing.
I wanted to know what the breakout of certificate salaries were between administrative and instructional staff. We'll do that for benefits as well.
Yep, absolutely. I will.
May I add one thing? Can we, along with the classified and LSC, the administrative salaries as well in comparison?
I'm also interested a little bit in what's included in the services and operating costs, and not just the 14%, which is the share of our general fund we're dedicating towards services and other operating costs, but it would be good to have some comparisons of other districts. In fact, it would just be good to have this distributional snapshot for other districts to see where we stand compared to the other districts. In particular, those that are in the bottom half of that revenue chart that you showed us. So, I don't want to compare us to Portola Valley or Woodside because we'll never be there. But certainly, there's a pretty tight cluster of us from, I'd say, maybe South City down, something like that would be great. Roughly the bottom half of the revenue per student on that horizontal bar chart.
School Services of California produces every year and will help you produce a report that compares you to others in your expenditures, your salaries, your other things. It comes up right about mid-March. So I'll start to look at some things from 17, 18, but I do think that it's important to have more accurate numbers. One of the things I know is that our surrounding districts have offered increases in pay, and we not been keeping up with that. And so it's important to kind of compare that on that end, and that should be mid-March.
Thanks. The only other point that I wanted to make is, and you made this, we're not alone. I mean, there are districts all over the state that are feeling the pinch just like us. I just heard on the radio today, West Contra Costa County, they got to cut $8 million. That's just a start because they're like $42 million in the hole, right? So of course they're much larger than we are. That's just an example, a very recent example of other districts that are really in the front. So I don't know when the levee's going to break in Sacramento, but eventually it's going to have to, and they're going to have to do something up there because, you know, it's not just us, I mean, it's systemic across the whole state. Any more questions? This is really weird to have it like this. It should be. Anyway, so what do we have next? District goals. The district values the goals provided in our local control accountability plan and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. Details for each of those district goals can be accessed on our agenda online public page or by visiting the district website www.pacificasd.org under District Administration Board of Trustees. Item 12A, Parcel Tax Oversight Committee Annual Report. Ms. Peterson.
Thank you. So tonight we have Nancy here from the audience. She's one of our parcel tax members to give us the report on the Parcel Tax Committee. We just met in January, and this is an oversight committee that was appointed by the Board of Trustees. And Will, if you could please bring up the expenditures, you know, the attachment that has the expenditures. Okay, thank you, Nancy.
Sure. Hi, my name's Nancy Rosen. I joined the Parcel Tax Committee in 2014 as the representative from Corolla School. This year I've transitioned to a community member as our youngest is in 7th grade. So we'll be in Corolla after next year. So our job as a Parcel Tax Committee member is to make sure that the funds are being spent along the lines of how the parcel tax was written. So we go through what they've spent the money on and make sure that it fits into the language for each one. So pretty clear as to what they've done. We ask questions about each of the expenditures to make sure that it falls into, you know, library media, and each year it's been a little bit different. There's been a little extra money that's been spent. One year we had money to donate to the libraries. So we've done school gardens. So each year we try to put something toward something that we can, you know, that doesn't get funding, especially libraries. This year for the 2019-20, we always have a reserve. And the balance for next year's is projected to be $76,818. Last year it was $91,794. We, as the Parcel Tax Committee, Oversight Committee, we don't pick where it goes to. That's done by the district. So. That's it. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
I can answer any questions if the trustees have any questions.
No, this looks pretty familiar to me. It changes a little bit marginally each year. Do we have any idea of whether there's going to be changes in the housing market and therefore the parcel tax revenues?
So actually, no, there hasn't been much change since in the last several years. We do have a company that who collects the parcel tax revenues for us, and the projection has been pretty steady. It dipped last year a little bit, and then right now the current projection is just under 1.3 million. It hasn't fluctuated very much from year to year.
I mean, the thing about parcel taxes is that the revenues they don't go up with property values.
It's only, well, it's a set dollar amount of 100.
They don't go up.
Yeah,
so the only way they could go up is if there's a whole bunch more housing that's built.
Right, and we just haven't, right, we haven't had a lot of construction, so. It also depends on the senior exemptions as well.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, and thanks for all of the work that you do on parcel tax committee, making sure the dollars are being spent wisely. Okay. Item 12B, the Bond Oversight Committee Annual Report. Ms. Peterson.
Okay, thank you. This is a new committee that the board appointed last year, and we are actually still looking for committee members, different representatives from different schools. If there's anybody that's interested, please let me know. We did have our meeting, and Linda was on the committee and has since resigned from the committee as the Valleymar representative, so we'll be looking to replace that position. So it was Heather and Linda and Dennis and myself, and Dennis is here tonight to actually present how the committee met and the discussions we had. And thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it.
So my name is Dennis, and our responsibility is basically to ensure that the investment that's made from the bond initiative actually stays within the confines of the bond. And so it's been relatively simple in 2018-19. It's been on the facility master plan expenses and also on reimbursement solutions from the past years. That's $453,000. And then 2019 and 2020, there was a significant investment in technology that's been invested in schools, $338,000, and then also $123,000 that's been invested in the facility master planning and consulting. And so all of the expenditures that we've seen to date have fallen within the confines of the actual bill itself. So, thanks.
Any discussion? No? Any discussion?
Well, my only comment is, this position only requires 1 hour a year. So please tell your friends, we really need people on this position, we need to get it filled. It's been a long time overdue, so.
There's just one vacancy that I heard.
Oh, no, there's not.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I think 6 vacancies.
Yeah, so, and whose responsibility is it to market this and to recruit for it? Is it the Joe, do you have any ideas of how we might get more?
The principals are going to reach out to their communities. We do have a business representative, Dennis. I did reach out to the city of Pacifica for the senior representative, and really now I think this year we'll just push to get representatives from all the schools, and the principals will assist with advertising in their newsletters and also just by word of mouth and talking to people.
Thank you. All right, item 12C, Human Resources Update. Ms. Gavidia.
Yes. Thank you very much for allowing us to update you once again. Things change rapidly in our Human Resources Department, especially when it comes to trying to keep our positions filled. I completely understand the frustration of the parents, especially the parents at Cabrillo. We had, as of last week, all our positions filled. And then again, at the same day that, or the day before, one of our contractors was to show up, again at Cabrillo. She abandoned her contract and we got notice that she wouldn't be coming and she left the state. So we went right back to work to try and find another replacement for that position. At this time, we already had filled a 1.4 caseload at Cabrillo. We had filled 0.4 with an employee and have a 0.6 person starting right after the break, which leaves us with another 0.4 remaining that we will continue to search for and put somebody in the rest of that caseload as soon as we possibly can. We have signed up for 5 job fairs during the month of March, so we'll be quite busy during that time, including 2 virtual job fairs. This is the first year that we will be trying something different, a virtual job fair. The advantage of that is that we'll reach a wider audience. So we'll see if that's a worthwhile resource for us. We also did, for the second year in a row, send out the annual intent to return to all certificated staff. This is a helpful tool at the beginning of the recruitment season to get a sense for those people who already know what their plans are for next year, to give us a heads up one way or the other. Just a heads up, it's not an official resignation or official declaration that you're staying, but just a kind of an idea of where we might have some places that we need to focus on. That was about a week and a half ago. We haven't had any feedback yet, but we're hoping that for those people who make up their minds early, that they would work with us collaboratively to give us that information. And that's my update for this month.
Discussion?
It goes back to my correspondence. Can we just grab it again?
So Maria, I'm sorry. I'm just wondering where we are at with the, not just the teachers, but the one-on-one helpers in the classrooms, such as Ortega, IBL, Sunset Ridge.
You know, I'm not aware of one-on-ones that are vacant. I'd have to check. There might be one or two. Sometimes it is difficult to find people who have the skills to work with the children who have level of need where they need that kind of support. And you know, we just actually, I feel, although I would love to have all the positions filled, I feel like only 4 vacancies feels like it could be a lot worse. But I know that doesn't alleviate the strain on the people who are trying to cover. The other thing that we're doing is I'm working with the principals and the staff to try to make sure that we are not overstaffed in that area, and to make sure that, you know, for those staffing levels in the classrooms and those decisions about giving students one-to-one support are really solid decisions. So those are the kinds of strategies we're using right now. And I think, I guess at this point, the other point I would feel comfortable saying is that over the next month or so, we want to make sure that we have a little flexibility for movement as we look at our staffing levels over the next few months.
So is there any way we can have that included in the report?
Sure, that would be fine.
Thank you.
So I'm rather surprised that we had another runner, so to speak. And I'm wondering if we have an idea of why this person reneged on their contract.
This is the nature of, this is very different than hiring a direct employee, hiring through an agency for a contractor. The burden or the onus of obligation is on our part, not on theirs.
Sure.
And if a better deal comes along in another state, or, you know, it's just not the same. It's just not the same is about all I can say, my years of experience in dealing with both types of situations. I have to say that I haven't seen the rate of reneging in the past as I have in this last year. But I guess that also speaks to the volume of openings that we have, so the ratio is higher of the number of people that we need.
Is there anything you think that we could do to better screen people who might be more prone to taking, even if it's just like asking them up front, how many offers are you considering right now?
Again, it's very different when you're working with an agency. We don't, that's not how we make the selection. The agency deals with all of that. They do the screening, they get them to, so the agency is the one that is the employer of the contractor. What we screen for is, are you a good fit? Are you qualified? Do you think you would like to come work here? You know, could you fit in with our team? Are you up to date on best practices? But in terms of offers, they will not answer anything about offers they're entertaining. I cannot make a direct offer to them. I have to make the offer to the agency. If I were to ask questions like that, they would defer to their recruiter.
Was this the same agency as we used to?
Oh, we're working with like a dozen different agencies. So, yeah, I don't recall if it was the same. They kind of become a blur after a while. We have
If it was the same agency, then I would be careful, right?
Of course.
I would think.
Of course, and on the other hand, we're also, we're desperate to fill the positions, and one person doing the wrong thing doesn't necessarily reflect on somebody else who might be very ethical.
Sure.
And it's,
sure.
Yeah. So I appreciate the
Now we have
advice.
two. Now we have two, is what I'm saying, right? Now we have two. So it's not just one. I just don't want to see, because the thing is, you're spending a lot of time arranging this as well. So each time one of these falls through, the impact's felt all over. It's felt on our existing general ed teachers that are trying to slack, and of course our students too. Sorry.
We're all very, very frustrated.
I just have a question. So the agency, is that something the district has contract with, or are these just recruiters?
They're recruiters. They're not even non-public agencies, they're just recruiters.
Okay, so we don't really have any exclusive contracts with anybody, we're being approached by recruiters with employees.
Well, at this point, we're reaching out and to let them know our need, and then they funnel through people that they think we might be interested in. And it's we see a whole gamut of people. I've talked to potential contractors who get presented to us who don't know what they're talking about, and I can tell that after a 5-minute conversation with them, and we say thanks but no thanks. And then we get other people, the 3 or 4 that we have placed in the last few months are, really doing a nice job, and some of them even, could turn out to be potentially long-term employees with the district. So it runs a gamut. It's just a very different thing from recruiting and hiring our own staff directly. It's a very different animal.
Can you just reflect on this strategy I think we talked about before, which was to try to reach out to recently retired teachers that might just want to come back temporarily?
So we have done that. We sent a letter out with our quarterly reimbursement check in January. No response. We have had the hire that we did at Cabrillo is a retiree. However, the trouble sometimes with retirees is they wanted to work with the kids, but they don't want to do the IEPs, they don't want to do the paperwork, they don't want to come to the IEP meetings. So we are kind of, we make a tough call, like, okay, we'll at least get the teacher in to work with the kids, but it still leaves a portion of the job that spills over onto everybody else. So we just are making that call on a case-by-case basis. But yes, we have reached out to all the retirees that we're connected to.
Thank you. All right. Item 12D, the 2020-2021 school year calendar.
I believe that we have a speaker.
You do.
To the school calendar.
Mr. Janelle Jones.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. I'm Janelle Jones. I'm a parent at IBL, and I also spoke to the board a year ago on the same topic, which is a topic that's very important to all parents in our district, and I think needs to be re-examined by the district, which is the passage of the school calendar. I'm a member and a moderator of an online community called School Days Pacifica. We have 780 members. I'm also a member of another online community called Pacifica Parents, which has 245 members. A topic of great discussion on both of these Facebook pages is the school calendar. And I've actually promised both sites that I will post once it gets approved tonight. Because parents need more advance notice about our calendar. Because of the lack of camps in the area, things fill up, things need to be booked in advance, vacations need to be booked in advance. So what I'm proposing is that the district either look at a very minimum passing a calendar prior to the Christmas holidays, or looking at doing 2 to 3 year block calendars. I think that I love that I got to speak after Dr. Olson talked about the budget, because I think it ties in really well. There's money that the district is leaving on the table because we're doing this late calendaring. Families can't plan. I was just talking to another parent leader, Charlotte Allen, that spoke earlier, and she was talking about a family that she knows that missed, and I know several families just like this, that missed the first week of school last year because they booked vacations or camps that they couldn't get refunded, and then their child missed the first week of school because of it. So I know that the district gets funded on average daily attendance, and that many of us in the room have been at a lot of LCAP meetings, and chronic absenteeism is a problem in our district, to say the least. And so we are not helping that problem by students possibly missing 5 days of school or more because of the district's own actions. So I think we need to look at this from both doing the right thing as partnership between the district and parents and families in our district, also the monetary ramifications of absenteeism, and then as a third thing, students when they're not in the classroom lose out. So whenever and whether that's the first day of school or the spring break being set, the more advance notice that we can give to the families of the district, the better. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Oh,
Perfect timing.
Who we can talk about?
I work at a neighboring school district, and in that school district, there's a committee of parents and teachers and administrators that get together and have meetings about their calendar. And so it's a shared ideas, suggestions, and that committee comes up with a calendar. And I don't think we've ever done anything like that, and I'm not sure of all the complexities, that would come with that. But that might be something that would be helpful. Just knowing as when I was a parent in the district and I had elementary school's kids and then I had high school, sometimes they didn't match up and we would have to decide who's going to miss a week of school. And so usually it would be the elementary school because high school was rigorous, and so I can understand the calendaring part. And so I'm just throwing it out there on the table that maybe some kind of committee for the future might be helpful or help resolve that. We do have chronic absenteeism, and 18 days or more that our students are missing when they're labeled chronic. So, thank you.
Discussion? So I'm completely open to that, to having a committee which would include staff, parents, and board members. Totally open to that. And I hear the public, speaking from the public here, that more advance warning is better than less. So, and it's a difficult decision, if you're trying to plan around vacations and all of that. So. I think a lot of the discussion that we've had surrounding the calendar has really been trying to focus on how can we get our calendar more in line with high school districts, right? Because those families that really become the jam when the two calendars are offset and kids in both types of schools. So, but I'm completely open to that. I think the board will have to discuss probably best once Elizabeth comes back. And Kyle's here. So, we do have a calendar that is here. Want to give your presentation so we can?
Well, I'm very pleased to present you with a draft calendar for your review and approval. I really want to commend all the parties who did work on making this calendar happen for this year, including the board and LSEA and CSEA, and as well as the district negotiations team. We did work hard to continue to align it with the Jefferson Union calendar. We hope that that everyone will be pleased with how it looks this year. It's very similar to last year, and so we recommend that you approve the calendar, and we'll post it as soon as we have your approval.
So, is there any more discussion about the calendar? I mean, we've already discussed it. But are we allowed to vote on this with just 3 members?
We are allowed to vote.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're all taking a piece of Ms. Doggett and Ms. Berdal's here. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school year calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve that. All those in favor?
Board passes 3-0. Thank you.
Item 12E, Board of Trustees Committee Liaison and School Assignments. Superintendent Olson.
I have Elizabeth's request for the committee assignments, but I don't have I's requests. So just typically, we do school assignments from the beginning of the school year to the end. The committee assignments are from January to December. So the question is, do we want to continue with this, or do we want to table this until the next month?
Well, we don't have Kaiser, but I think we should just probably table it, but we're going ahead. Anything that we're signed up for, we're still doing.
Okay, yeah, that sounds, yeah, that's fine. Okay. So you won't have committee assignments?
That we're going to table any changes to the assignments until our colleagues.
That would make sense.
Okay, thank you. Okay, board bylaws, board policies, and administrative regulations. BDAR. Oh, this is something that we wanted to table, 5145.11.
That's been tabled till March.
So 13B, October manual maintenance, AR 4116, just Gavinia.
Yes, this is just coming back for a first reading following a correction that we made. If you recall, the first paragraph there was stricken, and it shouldn't have been. So we just unstruck it. And that is the policy that we're bringing forward, which is in keeping with how we operate with our certificated personnel permanent status.
Discussion? No? Pretty innocuous. Okay, so we have manual maintenance on the 2000 series. Superintendent Olson.
We believe what's on the regulations around the superintendent's contract, and I think specifically around needing to do things in public, in a public open session, and no automatic increases of not tenure, but just increases of contract. They have to be voted on as opposed to being automatic.
Any discussion on it? I was happy I'm reading it. I didn't see anything out of the order. So, manual maintenance 3000 series. Ms. Peterson.
Okay, this is with regards to consultants, and it has to do with the new law, Assembly Bill 5. And it has a test as to whether an individual or a company would qualify as a consultant. So if the district is hiring companies to do services for the schools, we do have to follow the AB5 and look at it's called an ABC test. And so this is something that we are reviewing, and I'll be reviewing it with our HR department as new contracts come up. And you do see all the contracts under the consent agenda. There's a consultant contract. And so we will be reviewing all of those to make sure that it does meet the ABC test going forward.
Because I was reading through it today, and then I was just scratching my head, and I was actually thinking about the consultants, or whether the contractors were hiring to fill temporary special education needs count as contractors or not, and they probably really should do the ABC test, right? Because that's my guess.
It's a little bit different with special education. Those are like sub-agreements for services when you're not allowed, when you are unable to hire an employee. We've typically gone to what's called a sub-agreement for services, and they are legitimate companies providing individuals to the school district. So we're paying the company, and it is their business, it's their customary business to provide these types of employees to school districts. Did you want to add anything?
No, that's absolutely correct.
That makes a lot of sense, because I was reading it and I was just like, wow, these guys call themselves contractors, but they're in no way operating independently of the school district on their own, doing their own thing, kind of like an Uber driver or something like that.
So that goes back to my previous point about how our arrangements with the agency, not directly with the individual.
Okay, thanks so much. Any other discussion?
No, I was just kind of scratching my head too. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, very helpful, thank you. Okay, I think we're down to the manual maintenance 6000 series, Mr. Lucy.
Yes, so what I present to you is there's two the main ones that are CSBA samples with revision. That's board policy and AR 6143, which it's updated, the policy is updated to provide against providing any course separately on the basis of specified characteristics or refusing participation of a student on such such basis. And then also it updates the Bracero program, basically changing the terminology from foreign language to world language. And then it reflects the new law, which replaces the reference of homemaking with family and consumer sciences. So it's just a naming change there. The second one is the CSB sample AR 6174 with regards to the education of English learners. This regulation clarifies the process for assessment and identification of English learners, including the additional notification requirements. There's a section on it for reclassification and redesignation, revised to require English learners who have been reclassified to be monitored for 4 years, at least 4 years following their reclassification. And this is consistent with the federal program monitoring instrument, and it also adds further information regarding the composition and duties of school level and district level English learner advisory committees. And that's it.
All right, is there any discussion on these? Yeah, I was interested in any issue as well, because it seems like we may have had some sort of limits before as to how much support we get from English learners, and now we're opening it up, which seems like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So thanks. All right, we are down to the end of our agenda, so we're on item 14, future agenda items. Dr. Olson.
So we will we have, I don't want to get a date from, but we have a special board meeting on February 25th, Tuesday 25th, and that will be a closed session with our labor negotiator. At that time, we will also look at the comprehensive school safety plans on that meeting, and then when we come back in March, we will bring back board policy 5145.11. We'll get you answers to the questions that you brought up. Are there any other agenda items? In March is a busy month because as we do budget reductions, Any of the certificated employees and certificated administrators need to receive their March 15th notice. So we will begin to introduce budget reductions. We don't need to decide on them, but we do need to make sure that the person is properly notified that they may be reassigned. So that will be a busy meeting. Are there any other future board items or future agenda topics?
And Suzanne, thank you very much for sending out all the dates.
You're welcome.
But I don't know if you guys got those, but very helpful, so I will make sure that it's done.
Thank you.
While we close, I just want to thank Suzanne for, it's not easy to come over here and to make that decision to come over here on Monday, so I really do appreciate everything that you did to put us where we are.
All right, that being said, meeting is adjourned at 8:48.